Professionals Network. We are a non-profit based in New Zealand and Australia, and part of our mission is to support our migrants entering into the professional world. Today, we would like to discuss the new NZ residence visa that Immigration New Zealand has announced in the past weeks, and the impact that it has on our migrant community. With us, we have Malkiyat Singh, who's the Director of Carmento Immigration, with years of experience in immigration advisory, and he'll be answering some of our questions and your questions that you can submit today for the next hour. Welcome, Malkiyat.
Thank you, Rajpreet.
Great. So firstly, I guess we can start with just the basics that come into play with the visa. Some of them, the key dates that we know of so far. I know one's approaching on the 1st of December, but what are the other key dates surrounding the visa?
So in terms of key dates, I would like to highlight that key dates are not just the dates which are for the applications to open. We need to be mindful of key dates for eligibility. So first key date is 29th of September, and this date is linked with several of the eligibility requirements. One of that is which visa did you actually hold on that date. So it's quite important key date. And second intake of these residence applications will actually begin in March. So we will get more details as Immigration New Zealand learns in their launch in December. So 1st of December is when we will start getting an opportunity to submit applications. Immigration New Zealand recently held a webinar for immigration advisors and lawyers, where they said, we know that everybody is so anxious to apply, but don't submit all the applications on the first day. So they are requesting people that applications will remain open. Even if you are eligible for 1st of December, you will have time until later, so you don't have to submit right at that moment, but you can.
Wonderful. That's always good to know. I guess from there, we can then go into what the process looks like for submitting your application. What do you want to get together? At what time?
Yes, that's a very good question, Raj. In terms of what the process looks like, there are three criteria. So the process is very different for all of these three criteria. If somebody needs to submit an application for the reason that they meet the eligibility requirement for being settled in New Zealand, they don't have to submit a lot of documents. So most of the checks will be done by Immigration New Zealand in their system. Immigration New Zealand maintains a log of anybody coming into the country, leaving the country, so they can actually check it very easily if somebody meets the settled criteria. What was the first date they arrived in the country? How many days did they live here? When did they depart? When did they come back? So for those applicants, the process will be very streamlined. All they have to do is make sure that there are not any character issues which has come into attention in terms of if they have had any issues with New Zealand police. They need to make sure that they address those concerns. And if we look at other two criteria, second one is skilled. So if somebody met the requirements because of the fact that they were getting paid $27 per hour, the requirement is that they have to prove that it was a genuine salary, a genuine job as on 29th of September, as well as on the day they submit their application. So for them, the documents checklist will be, for example, they would have to show that they had a full-time employment, which could be a permanent employment, or if it was a contract, they have to also get additional letters from the employer explaining what was the nature of the contract, if it is not already covered in the contract. Along with that, limited medical certificates may be required. And if we look at the scarce list criteria, people who are considered to be scarce and valuable for New Zealand, and that's the reason they meet the eligibility requirement, they would also have to provide description of their job in terms of how their occupation meets the requirements mentioned in those occupations. And this is where applicants have to be mindful of. Sometimes if the occupation name is not on the list, but you believe that your occupation is largely, or I would say substantially similar to one of those occupations, you should still consider your options. And these are the differentiating factors where the type of documents needed would change. So based on the application.
Great. There's a lot of good information in there. And so after the application's been submitted, what might the time frame be like for processing? How long can people expect to wait to hear back?
Immigration New Zealand is promising that they are gearing up to make sure that they can make decisions in a streamlined, fast manner. And they are saying that our targets are to process 80% of the applications in the 12 months from the date of lodgement. So if somebody submits their application, and let's say if 165,000 people submitted on 1st of December, they're not going to, but let's say then by end of December next year, they should have made decision on 80% of those applications. Now, Immigration New Zealand has actually made a huge improvement in the way that they are looking at new ways of working. So they are looking at launching new functionality in phases. And I know that behind the scene there is also a technological improvement project going on. So they are trying to utilize the benefits of automation and artificial intelligence in terms of could they make decision making easier for visa officers? Could they reduce the manual work required on applications? Could they facilitate the technology in such a manner that visa officers can make faster decisions? So I'm hopeful that they will succeed in maintaining their promise this time.
Great. And I see we've also got a following question on there for a bit of background. A lot of people have discussed the eligibility or lack of for people that are currently studying, for example. So a little bit of background on why this policy has been introduced, why Immigration New Zealand has decided to offer this visa, and possibly some reasons are around why some of these major groups, like students, have been excluded from this visa.
That's a very good question, Raj, and I think it's actually a topic of national debate, if you ask me. Immigration New Zealand has made announcement that they want to grant visas to select group of people. Now, what happens is they have to had discussions around economical impact of this decision as well. When they are saying that we are granting residence visas to these people, their statement is in the alignment of that we are doing this to help New Zealand employers retain skilled people we currently need. And because borders are closed down, we can't import new people in to take on those jobs. We are making sure that people who are already in the country and who are already in existing employments, they can be retained. Now, if they were to include student visa holders in this jackpot residence, that's what many people are calling it, that would have meant that those international students may not have continued paying international fee. So if you look at an example, if somebody is studying towards a Masters of Engineering, their annual fee is in the range of $33,000 to $36,000. If they were going to continue studying further for 3 years, that's over $100,000. So if those people would have gotten one of 2021 residence visa, Immigration New Zealand would have made a loss for universities. And as an economical decision, that's what we think. This is the reason why those people were not included. And this is the reason why visitor visa holders, student visa holders, and many such other open visa holders, partners of students, they were not included. Because if partner of a student would get a residence visa, that would mean that their partner could also become a resident and they would stop paying international fee. So I think the reason is very commercial.
Great. I think that background is really important to understand the reason behind the visa. A lot of people perhaps aren't aware of these kinds of things. We've got a question here from Saurav Gupta asking, what about infringements like driving license that's been suspended for 28 days? Will that sort of infringement affect your application?
It can. So let me see if I can find this question on our screen. So if somebody has a traffic infringement, yeah, I found the question. So Saurav Gupta, yeah, it's a very good question, and I think many people will benefit from this. If someone's license was suspended, we need to find out what was the clause which was mentioned on your police ticket. Were you asked to attend court? Could you have been imprisoned for up to 3 months, even though you were only given suspension for 28 days? But what was the maximum penalty which could have been the result for that offense? So we need to read the description on your police ticket. If it is one of those acts under which the court had the power to impose 3 months imprisonment or longer, then that's a problem. Then you may not meet the character requirements for being granted any visa, not just residence visa. Even for a work visa, Immigration New Zealand could decline your visa, saying you do not meet character requirements to be granted a visa. Now, this is not end of the journey in New Zealand. If somebody has gotten it, there are options. For example, if you can prove that why you should be granted a character waiver. Character waiver is a special situation where Immigration New Zealand will say, yes, you do not meet the character requirements, but we are willing to still grant you a residence visa. And you have to tell us reasons why we should consider that, why we should still grant you a residence visa or a temporary visa despite you meeting the character requirements. So there are provisions, but if it's a simple suspension and there was no serious offense which could have resulted into 3 months of imprisonment or any longer, then you can simply write an apology letter. You can explain to immigration what was the scenarios and how you are remorseful and how it was a one-off incident. Now, if it was a series of incidents, if your license got suspended multiple times, then again it's a pattern which Immigration New Zealand could pick up on, that you are consistently not following New Zealand laws, and traffic laws are considered equivalent to any other law in New Zealand. So it's not like some overseas countries where traffic fines are not even considered. It's considered a social norm that, oh, it's fine. Nobody cares if you have traffic of infringements. In New Zealand, it is considered a breaking the law. And that could reflect on your character if you have too many of such tickets.
Great. Following on really well from that, actually, we've got a question here from Kaur Chahal. She's asking, are the warning letters that are given by the police to individuals something that needs to be mentioned as part of your conviction record? She has applied with the full report of police check from the Ministry of Justice. Nothing has shown up on it. It's entirely clear, but does she still need to mention warning letters for traffic convictions, for example?
If it was a simple warning letter where you did not have to pay any fine, you did not have any demerit points, and that means that you were not convicted. They have let you off. They have just warned you and not actually undertaken the legal process to, to make it register on your file. So technically, they warned you that if you were to do this again, you will get the infringement. So I think you don't have to disclose this because technically you were not served anything.
Cool. Just a quick follow-up from Saurav here. I don't have that ticket. Can you please guide me on how to get the ticket again from police? No, they gave me a ticket, issued me a fine, and license got suspended. I paid the fine, and it happened 1.5 years ago, but there wasn't a ticket after that incident.
Okay, simplest process would be to contact New Zealand police and ask them that I want my record. There are options, so you can even ask under various provisions. You can get your there is also Official Information Act under which you can get any details held about you in their records. So you can easily find that out. They have a website on which they have an email address also. We will try after this session to put those in the comments.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. There's another, again, just to stay on the same topic quickly, there's another comment from Ashish Sharma. He said, I've got 10 to 15 traffic tickets in 6 years, but no serious offense. Can that be considered?
Yes, and this is what I was referring to. If somebody has a consistent history of breaking traffic laws, we have seen that these officers raising concerns that they may even ask you to comment on this, that why do you consistently keep on breaking traffic offense or traffic laws? So you may have to still, there is nothing to be concerned of. So unless somebody asks you to reply and respond that, hey, why did you have this? You are okay. You still have to mention all of these offenses in your application. So I don't think if it was spread over 6 years, unless you're counting from year 1 to year 6 and all of them happened in the 6th year, then it's a bit of concern that what's going on. But if there has been a time lag between the time of the last offense and the time of application, you could justify that, yeah, I have learned my lessons and now onwards I'll be more careful. You may even want to do a defensive driving course as a preparation for your residence application to prove that yes, you did discover that you need some help and you had all these traffic offenses, traffic tickets. Depending upon what was the nature, this defensive course may be suitable but may not be suitable. So many organizations provide these defensive driving courses, and sometimes courts would also suggest this course to be done by particular people who have breached some offense, who have breached some of the traffic laws. So that is one of the penalty forms suggested by courts. So if you were to do it voluntarily, it shows that you are a responsible citizen who is adamant on being a good citizen.
Cool. And would a character certificate be the sort of thing that could help support him? He just got a follow-up question there.
Yeah. When we talk about character certificates, if we are talking in the context of a character waiver, character certificate is one part. A character waiver requires you to prove that how many people are supporting your application, how many people can vouch for your good character. And wherever you have lived, maybe your flatmates, your employers, your teachers, members of the society, do they vouch for you that, yeah, despite knowing the issues you have, they still stand for you to be granted a visa. So those are the type of letters we need. And sometimes in more serious matters, you could even get a permanent character waiver issued through Minister of Immigration or a representative. And the process to get that is to contact your local MP. If your local MP can support your character waiver request, and that's a powerful thing to have.
Awesome. I think that's a lot of good information around that subtopic. Just going back a little bit, Jatinder Singh asked, have they got the 165,000 cap for this visa, or are they going to process and accept more applications until July of next year?
They don't have any cap as such. This is an estimate. So Immigration New Zealand has clarified that they are estimating based on the stats available to them that these are the number of applications they are likely to process. And this estimate includes people on partnership-based visas as estimated by Immigration New Zealand. The actual numbers could be much different.
Cool. And Shadun Farmer has asked that they're on an essential visa. They arrived in 2015 and want to change their job in the same field as where they're in currently. Would this affect their application?
Okay, Sharan Famji, welcome to this live video. So I like your name, Sharan Farmer. So I think this is the new trend that where India has had lots of farmers protests, and recently we had similar protests in New Zealand. So many people have changed their names to say farmer in the end. I really like that. And your question is that you arrived in 2015. And if you are on an essential skills work visa, if you were on an essential skills work visa as on 29th of September, you are most likely going to meet the settled requirement, which means that you only need to remain legal in the country at the time you submit your application. You have already met the eligibility requirement. There is no obligation on you to continue working in a similar type of profession or occupation or in the same job. You are free to change any jobs. Based on the information you have given, I think you will be eligible under settled criteria for which you don't have to maintain that same occupation.
Great. That reassurance, I'm sure, will help
Yes.
him quite a lot. Great. We have a question from Saurav Khurana asking, what are the laws for parents to get permanent residency? This may be more of a general question outside of the resident visa, but I know a lot of people are very passionate about it, especially in our culture. So it's quite worth asking.
Yes. So, Saurav, welcome. This is a great question and also a very hot topic. For parents, there are several options generally. However, due to COVID-19, many of those options are put to hold. For example, there is an option of 3-year visitor visa. So if somebody wants to come here just to visit, that option is on hold. When we talk about PR, normally it starts from a residence visa. So what you need to understand is that permanent residence visa is a subsequent visa which is granted after you get residence visa and you have lived in New Zealand for a certain time frame, minimum 2 years. For parents, there is a category which is still open, subject to COVID-19 restrictions. It's called parent retirement category. So that's a category where parents have to have enough funds to invest in New Zealand and they have to show that they meet the minimum income threshold, yearly income threshold, to be able to look after themselves. So this is usually not the case with Indian families unless they are business owners who have fixed income of 60,000 New Zealand dollar or more per year. So that category, that's why it's never a popular category about which people talk about. But there is a parent retirement category which was not closed by Immigration New Zealand. There is a parent category which helps parents to get a residence visa on the fact that their children in New Zealand meet a specific income threshold. That policy is currently on pause. So Immigration New Zealand and or Immigration Minister has not clarified when they are going to reopen it. And there were several protests asking the government to reduce this threshold because over 100,000 is not a common income for any migrant to be earning in New Zealand unless you are in specific professions, IT, technology, or legal professions. The salary thresholds were very unreasonable for a majority of migrants. So right now, sadly, we have to say that there are not many options for parents' residence visa. There is a option of 3-year visitor visa, which is on hold due to COVID. After COVID, that would be the best visa for somebody to come to New Zealand while you continue working towards increasing your income threshold.
A follow-up from Saurav. He said he has heard that there is a possibility of getting your parent a PR if you earn more than 90,000.
Yeah, the threshold is over 100,000. However, that policy is still on pause. So even if somebody is earning 200,000 at the moment due to COVID, when Immigration New Zealand suspended all residence applications, parents category was also suspended.
Cool. There was a good little follow-up by Sharon saying that he's had his name farmer since 2010. So he's been supporting our farmers for a good 11 years now. So that's awesome to see. We have a question here from Rahul Raj asking, my wife's name is not on my passport. Could this cause any problems with her visa, I guess is what he means.
You don't need to have your partner's name on your passport. That's probably required for some other countries, but for New Zealand, Immigration New Zealand does not have that requirement. You need to prove otherwise that you are in a genuine committed relationship and that you meet the living together requirements. But having a name on the passport does not meet any of those requirements. It will not add any value, and if you don't have it, you are not losing on anything.
Great. Manish Verma, it's actually this question's on screen as well. Manish Verma asks, when is INZ coming with a full policy? I'm not sure, Malkit, if you'll interpret that question better than I can.
Yes. Immigration New Zealand has actually released the operational manual, which many people would understand as the full policy. So it's already accessible to all immigration advisors and lawyers. It is not updated on the public version of operational manual yet, because Immigration New Zealand still continues to make minor changes. Last time I checked, it wasn't updated. If they have updated, maybe we need to check, but we have an access already. So all those criteria's details, they have already published to all immigration advisors.
Great. We have Kash Money is asking, we did speak about this earlier for other traffic infringements. Would they have included parking tickets?
Parking tickets normally do not count as traffic offense. They are more council fines. So you don't have to mention parking tickets.
Awesome. That is a very clear-cut answer. Jaspreet Kaur asks, I need help with the partner visa. My fiance has been in New Zealand for 6 years now and has applied for citizenship recently. Due to COVID, they couldn't get married, but plan to do so as soon as borders reopen. How much time and what kind of proofs will be required to get that visa?
Jaspreet Kaurji, welcome to this live video. From your description, it appears that you are overseas. So please confirm if that is the case. If your fiance is in New Zealand for over 6 years, and if they have applied for citizenship, that at least means that they are a New Zealand resident. If your marriage is an arranged marriage, as per traditional culture, there is an option for you to apply for a culturally arranged visitor visa. So culturally arranged marriage visitor visa. So this is an option available to you if you are overseas and if you want to come here to get married in New Zealand, or if your fiance goes to India and you guys get married. After that, you both can come together to New Zealand. So hopefully your partner will be allowed enough leave from their employer so that you are flying together. But in general, if you get married, if you apply within 3 months of getting married under this policy, you will be able to get a special visitor visa to come to New Zealand.
Cool.
So,
she has confirmed, yes, she is from India. So that is correct. And is this an option available to them at the moment? Or is it something that COVID has also paused?
no, it is still an option, and we have helped many clients recently, and I have attended several weddings before this current 17th August lockdown. So many of our clients have actually come from India despite COVID restrictions. There is no restriction for culturally arranged marriages. So if any young male or female person in New Zealand is looking for an arranged marriage, it is still allowed. You can still bring your wives or husbands from India to get married in New Zealand, or you can go to India, get married, and then they can come here.
Awesome. That is great news indeed. Manish Verma has a follow-up that so INZ has shown a fee of New Zealand $2,160. If he has to include his wife and his kids in his application, I assume, then would he need to pay anything extra for them, or does this amount cover all of them?
As per Immigration New Zealand's current communication, this amount covers all of them.
Cool. Awesome. And to anyone else viewing, if you have any questions, make sure to add them to the comments and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can. Another question that I know we had from earlier was, will these residence visas have any special conditions or any other features that will be applied to them?
Many people were wondering if government should actually do that. And many policy commentators, they are making comments that as soon as 165,000 people, whenever they will get their residence, they're going to move to Auckland and further increase the housing prices for Auckland people. Now, Immigration New Zealand has had no such communication. They have no plans or infrastructure in place to put any special conditions at the moment. So far answer is no. There are no special conditions which will be imposed on these resident visas. However, that's a separate question. Should they? Maybe they should, or maybe they don't need to. So all of these concerns are more society-related concerns in terms of what impact would it be on those employers. So the question is that government is saying that we are doing it to help employers. And many of the migrants are stuck in the jobs which they don't really enjoy, which they don't really feel that this is their future, but because they had no other option, they are working in those roles. They're working in gas stations, they're working doing night shifts, many of them are doing personal care assistant work, yet this is not what they think their destiny is. So as soon as those migrants will get their residence visa, there is a fear among employers that these migrants will then leave their jobs. And because of our reputation, Indian people are always very entrepreneurial. So we like to do businesses. We like to open our own businesses, whether it's a franchisee or a new business from scratch. So many of our clients actually have come to me asking for guidance that, hey, I'm going to get my residence soon. I have these business plans. Would you like to help me in making some progress? What could I do right now so that when I am ready to launch my business, how do I do that? So this is a genuine concern being expressed by employers who are concerned that as soon as these migrants will get residence, they are no longer bound to work in any positions. They are free. They have the full freedom of a New Zealand resident. So it's an interesting question, but we will only have to find out what happens.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the answer. We have, I believe, two very similar questions. Srinu Raoji, if you could please expand on your question if it's not the same as Prabjit's. Prabjit Bhatt asks, if applicant doesn't have the birth certificate, then what is an alternative?
So Prabjit Bhattji, this is a very common scenario, and our advice is that if you or somebody else doesn't have a birth certificate, we need to find out what is the reason. Was it never issued or have you lost it? One option would be to find out from your local council, municipal corporation in India or whichever area you are from, if they can issue it. If it cannot be issued, then you may submit whatever other documents you have to Immigration New Zealand. For example, if you have Indian PAN card, if you have your 10th or plus 2, if you have any other documents which prove that this is your date of birth in collaboration with your passport, you can make an application to Immigration New Zealand saying that these are the reasons why I cannot obtain my birth certificate. And in past, not in this policy, because this will be the first time this policy applications will occur, for skilled migrant residents and for partnership-based residents, we usually had these scenarios very frequently. Many Indian applicants did not have a birth certificate, and Immigration New Zealand actually issued a special checklist just for Indian applicants, saying for those applicants who do not have a birth certificate or who have an error in their birth certificate, maybe the name is wrong or maybe the spellings are wrong, here is a checklist for those applicants. And the documents I just mentioned were on those checklists. So it's likely that a first starting point would be, as immigration advisors, we'll make sure that if one of our applicant does not have a birth certificate, we will do the preparation in alignment with what Immigration New Zealand used to ask for skilled migrant policy. And in addition, sometimes it's also a discretion of visa officer. For example, in one case, a visa officer demanded that the applicant should obtain a letter from the municipal corporation showing that on this date, which was the date of the actual applicant's birth, nobody else was born whose parents were this and this. So this was a method for that visa officer to ascertain that it's not a case of identity fraud. So they wanted a record application proof from that municipal corporation showing that nobody else was born on this date who had names of these parents. And one of the requirement for these documents was that any documents which you are providing in lieu of your original birth certificate should have name of both parents. For example, 10th, many of the boards, they only had name of father. Later on, they started writing name of mother. So Immigration New Zealand wanted to have any such documents which are being provided in lieu of birth certificate to have name of both parents. So I hope this is helpful, but if it's not there, try to find out if there is a process which you can follow to get it. If not, you can still submit your application, but do not go for those agents who will get you a document which is not genuine. Only follow authentic official process. Because I know many of our applicants, they have told us that they paid 35,000 Indian rupee to somebody and they just got a birth certificate done. So don't do it if it's not an authentic process.
Great. That's a really detailed answer there. Srinu Raoji, please do answer your ask your question if it was different to that one. Otherwise, we hope that that answers that for you. Karan Sidhu asks, do we need to get a police check from India or, frankly, I suppose, from any other authority outside of New Zealand?
So, Karan Sidhuji, the simple answer is no. But if somebody is living overseas and is included as a partner in the application, immigration officer may ask for it. Even those applicants who are in the country, the operational manual which has been released clarifies that if visa officer wants to, they can still ask for a police certificate. So overseas police clearance certificates are not required as a requirement for your application, but a visa officer may ask for it.
Great. And there was a question again from earlier. So there's two halves to this question. One, if you have existing visa applications and you put this residence visa application through, then does this new application take priority or do the old ones do? And a second part to it is, if you've applied for this visa, I believe it's also possible to apply for other visas, either while you're waiting or for other circumstances. In that case, what would the priority order be?
Okay, is this a question on our list or somebody has asked it?
It's one that I had added in from the beginning.
Okay, good. So, very good question indeed. The way Immigration New Zealand is processing applications is that anybody whose application is already with Immigration New Zealand for a residence category, they are allowed to submit a new application under this new policy from 1st of December, meaning that Immigration New Zealand wants to reduce their workload. So for example, if someone's decision is pending some technical work, some assessment of job description, maybe a PPI was issued and maybe a response was submitted and visa officers didn't have a chance to yet review that information. It takes many hours. It takes us several weeks sometimes in complex immigration matters. We are only working just for one applicant all week, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it can take up to a month to put together all the evidences which they ask. Now look at those time frames. Immigration New Zealand is already under a burden of a massive backlog. So what they have tried in this new policy is they are saying anybody whose application is under process, if a decision will be made by 1st of December, great. Otherwise, those people will have an option to apply under the new policy. So if somebody applies under the new policy, Immigration New Zealand is likely then going to offer them a refund for the skilled migrant application or work to residence application, saying that, hey, this is a more streamlined application for us. We would rather do processing under this application, and here is a bit of refund for you, so you don't have to pay the full $2,160. Here is after the refund, this is what you owe us. So here is your residence visa, you don't need to pay us more. That's the fees you need to pay. And we are now going to lapse your other application, and this is what is your residence is being granted under this 2021 residence visa. So that's first part of your question. Please remind me the second part.
So the second would be, I believe, if you've applied for your resident visa, but your existing visa may be expiring in that time frame, then what options do you have available?
Yes, we have to make sure that we understand that a residence visa and a temporary visa are two different types of visas. When you apply for a residence visa, normally you still have an obligation to make sure that you remain legal in the country. Meaning that if your current temporary visa, a temporary visa's definition is any work visa, visitor visa, or student visa. If that visa is going to expire, you need to make sure that you can apply for a further temporary visa and remain in the country while you wait for a decision on your residence visa. The same rule applies for 2021 residence visa policy. If you have applied or you're going to apply under this policy, if your temporary visa is running out, you have an obligation to apply for a further temporary visa. Now, there are a few of important details here. For example, if you are on a work visa, you meet the settled requirement. You need to apply for this visa residence visa, and after you have applied for this residence visa, you may even apply for a student visa. You are still maintaining a legal status in the country, and your application for residence will continue. This is many people are worried about that, hey, what will happen? Will my employer start exploiting me? If I'm not able to renew my work visa, I've already applied for my residence. Do I have any options? So Immigration New Zealand is saying that we are thinking of other options. They clarified that even if you apply for a student visa or any other valid visa and remain in the country, we will continue processing your residence application. However, they have confirmed that Immigration New Zealand will launch, or they are considering to launch, a special visa for those waiting a decision on 2021 residence visa policy.
Great, thank you for that answer. Manish Verma has asked a follow-up that if we don't have a birth certificate, but we are arranging an NBC, a non-availability of birth certificate through India, then INZ has mentioned on the website that we need an affidavit sworn in front of the magistrate along with NBC, PAN card, DL 10th certificate. Can we get this affidavit here in New Zealand? I'm assuming Manish is here in New Zealand, and it's obviously it's very difficult to travel back or to arrange that. So what would your advice be there?
Yes, Manish, a very good question. It is possible. You can go to a justice of peace and you can make an affirmation. Sometimes for specific type of declaration, you may have to go to somebody, a lawyer who is authorized to make such affirmations. And let me, it's coming to me. There is a technical legal word for special notary type declarations. So not every lawyer is able to do it. Some lawyers can do it. But you don't have to go to India. Everything is possible in New Zealand. So one of our neighbors in our Auckland office, I'm working from office today. So we normally refer clients to next doors, and our neighbors can do it.
Cool. And yeah, he has confirmed that obviously it's because it's difficult to go back to India. Sir, can you help us with this? Manish, we will be sharing Carmento Immigration's details if you'd like to get in touch with them specifically, if you have any follow-up questions and would like to get more information. Cool. There's another question that I had that was around the two phases of applying. So there's a first group that is eligible to apply from the 1st of December this year, which is less than 2 weeks away now. And then there is a second phase from the 1st of March next year. What are the two groups largely that fall into them? Which people may need to wait until March and which are able to be applying in a few weeks' time?
Yes. Immigration New Zealand has clarified that the first phase eligibility is for those who already have a residence application under skilled migrant category or work to residence application, or somebody who has submitted their EOI and has a child who is 17 years or older. Meaning that if they don't get residence in time, their child will end up in a situation where they can't go to school because they have to pay international fees. They have already finished their high school. They can't continue tertiary education. So that's why these people are also included in the first batch. Anybody else who meets the requirements of settled, skilled, or scarce list, they have to wait for 1st of March. You cannot apply before 1st of March. If you meet the eligibility requirement, you still have to wait for 1st of March unless you are one of those people who are eligible for phase 1. As we discussed, those are the ones whose residence application is already with Immigration New Zealand.
And so if someone were to have applied before the 1st of March, when they're eligible for the second phase, what would be the result of
Their
that?
application will be declined. So Immigration New Zealand has strictly mentioned that if someone is eligible to apply for phase 2, if they were to apply in phase 1, we will decline their applications.
Okay. Is it possible for them to then reapply for phase 2 after that, or would it be quite a difficult situation?
It is a possibility, but I do not recommend to test this, because what happens if you submit in phase 1 and the decision only comes of decline when the applications have closed? So that would be really sad for someone. So it's better to wait for the actual time and then apply.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not entirely sure on which phase they may be eligible for, I suppose it's good that there is a fair amount of time, and it's not necessary to apply on the 1st of December. There is what would be about 3 or so months of time for them to hopefully clarify and know if they're in the correct phase, or if they have to wait until the 1st of March.
Yes.
Great.
Most people who are in phase 1, they can simply check with their immigration advisor or with Immigration New Zealand also, because it's not a very difficult factor to consider. You would know if your residence application is with INZ or not. So it's only for those people who have submitted EOIs, they received invitation to apply, and they actually submitted the application. If you just submitted your EOI, that's not the same as submitting the application. So it's a distinction we need to be careful of. Many people are calling us saying, I submitted my EOI with INZ, so my application is with INZ. Can I apply in phase 1? Answer is no. EOI is not the same as application.
Cool. We are approaching 7 o'clock. Do you have another 10 or so minutes if there's a few other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Okay, awesome. So if people still do have any other questions, do feel free to chuck them into the comments and we'll answer them. For those that have found that they're ineligible for phase 1 and phase 2, perhaps there's quite a few people who, for example, we touched on this early on, that are currently studying and don't have this option available to them. What would be your advice to those people who aren't able to apply for this resident visa?
So if you are studying in New Zealand and you have missed out on 2021 resident visa, firstly, I want to say that my condolences. It was not your fault, and I think it's a commercial decision which the government has made. In my opinion, all students should have been included. I even supported a petition for this. We shared it on our page and we asked all our clients to sign it. There is a petition going on, so if you are interested to help such students, I would urge you to sign it. Someone else has started it. I haven't started, but I'm totally in support for this. So now the answer is, if you are a student, you should not lose hope. You were a student for an objective to gain skills, and New Zealand will continue to need skills. We have a continued shortage of skills. Right now in the job market, there is an absolute change of focus. Many employers are struggling to find good candidates. So your chances of finding a job are much better than compared to before. If you are studying towards a skilled-based occupation, then your chances are even better. So I would strongly recommend that make a career plan right now, that okay, we know that skilled migrant category is currently on pause, but they cannot keep it on pause forever. There will be other options of renewing work visas. So make sure that you have a clear pathway ahead. What is your occupation? Is it in demand? Are there jobs in that occupation? If your occupation is not in demand, are you studying towards the right skills? Do you have any other comparable, transferable skills from your overseas qualifications or from your prior experiences? Could you apply for jobs which are not relevant to what you are currently studying, but you have those skills from your prior life experience, prior academic experience, or prior work experience? So make a clear strategy for your career. Make sure that you don't just follow one career option. For example, we have many clients who worked as logistics specialists, and now they are studying to be a graduate level diploma in early childhood education because they couldn't find a job in the main occupation. They have changed their occupation. So many of those students who are now studying, you need to make sure that you have a clear pathway of all the options, pros and cons of all the career options you have. And then make sure that you start circulating your CVs right now. Make sure that you are active on LinkedIn. You create your professional profiles. Make sure that you make a career strategy. Maybe find somebody to be your mentor. Find a person who's already active in your occupation. Ask them, what are the tips they can give you to help you in networking with more professionals in that field. Maybe create a list of potential employers who could become your employers in future. Reach out to people in hiring positions, people who are functional managers. Ask them what would they want to see in a prospective employee. While you are studying, this is the best time to prepare for your job search. You should not wait to finish your study and then start your job search. While you are studying, if you get this insight from the industry and from potential employers, you can then focus on those skills in your study. It may even help you to choose specific optional subjects, optional papers in your academic qualification. So I hope this was helpful. This is a very favorite topic for me. So if I get started, it's hard to stop. So let me pause here.
I think that's a very well thought out and important answer. I think, especially for those that may feel that they've missed out on this opportunity, that there is still the ability to proceed and develop your skill set. A little sort of jump in here from myself and from YSPN. So for those that have joined us that weren't here on at the beginning of the live video, I'm Raj. I'm the lead for the Auckland team for Young Sikh Professionals Network. We started out as a group of young Sikh professionals, and that's where the name comes from. But we've grown to support people of all different backgrounds, from whether they're professionals in Australia and New Zealand or whether they're migrants, which is why we're doing this live video. Some of the things that we do to help support migrants, especially those looking to build their skill set to develop professionally, we have a free CV check service that also includes your LinkedIn profile. So if you're looking to get yourself set up there, expand your professional connections and make sure that you're well prepared for the workforce, and for the place that you ultimately want to end up in, the jobs that you want to be doing, not necessarily the jobs that you're having to do to make ends meet, which is definitely part of the challenges that migrants have to face. That's part of the things that we offer. We even have a mentoring program for those that may be more senior in their studies, or in their careers and would like to again grow to a particular goal that they have. So you can find us on our website, which is yspn.org.au. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Young Sikh Professionals Network. And same with Carmento Immigration. You can find them on Facebook under Carmento, or you can visit their website, carmento.com. I see we've got a few other good questions that have come in. So I do apologize if I don't pronounce this correctly. Midun Sasidaran. For phase 2, what are the documents that would be needed for the residency application? Are they general, or will they differ depending on your current situation or your current visa that you may be on?
So Midun, very good question. As I said before in this video, whether phase 1 or phase 2, the type of documents depend on which category you are eligible under. Are you claiming that you meet the eligibility requirement for being settled in the country? If that's the case, there are very few documents which you need to submit. If you are claiming that you meet the skilled requirement, that you are getting paid at $27 per hour as on 29th of September, and you are getting the same salary on the day you submit your residence application, then the documents are around your employment contract, your job duties, and Immigration New Zealand may even ask about risk documents. For example, they may want to find out if you are getting $27 per hour for doing something normally which only pays $20 an hour. For example, if you are a cleaner in some business and the business is hardly making their ends meet, and you are claiming that you are getting paid $27 per hour, however, their own manager is only getting $23 per hour. Now that's a big problem. And many of the clients have come to us asking, hey, my employer increased my salary on 27th of September, and I was paid for that salary pay period the week after. Is it going to be a problem, or is it okay? Now this is where you need to make sure that it's genuine, and Immigration New Zealand has made sure from their perspective in the operational manual which you will soon see once it becomes live. They are saying that we will check whether any of the claimed salaries and employment situations are genuine. So that is going to be one big area for them. And that's where there is a potential risk that maybe Immigration New Zealand is thinking too simplistically for these applications. Maybe they are too optimistic that they can process 80% of such applications in 12 months' time. And that's where many immigration advisors are saying that there are so many permutations and combinations of how things could be wrong that it is likely that it will take them longer to process applications. Now, same applies for scarce list. Although Immigration New Zealand is trying to streamline, there are many occupations which are on this list. Now, there is also, whenever there is a law, people find ways to break that law, and that makes it slow. That's when Immigration New Zealand is encountering a scenario where they don't really know if the claims being made are genuine or not. For example, somebody may be working as a cleaner, but the same employer under same company, they also have some other business type. Many people are asking us, what if my employer just writes on paper that my role was not that of a cleaner, but that of a chef or that of something else? Is it going to work out for me, or are there any risks? My advice is, don't claim something which is not true. And as we are being hosted by young Sikh professionals, so that's also in alignment with Sikhi principles. So if we don't deserve something and if we are lying to get it, there will always be problems. Even if there are no problems, your own consciousness will always challenge you that you are not worthy and you got it done. My advice is all those problems occur when you go out of alignment of your own moral values and you act something where you shouldn't have. So be true to yourself. Don't claim something if it wasn't there. You will have no problems at all. You will find other options in future. If you have the right skill set, if you have the right attitude, you are likely going to get residence one policy or the other. There will always be options for skilled people to get residence visa. So let's continue with next question. I hope I answered. The question was the type of documents. So documents will vary on the type of risk profile. Immigration New Zealand uses a software called CRISM. So this analytic software has prompts and risk flags. This software tells visa officers of what factors to consider, what kind of risks exist for a particular applicant, a particular employer. Many people argue and accuse Immigration New Zealand of being racist, but Immigration New Zealand says, well, these are our high risk countries. India is one such country. Most Indian applications are considered with suspicion in general for other policies. Now let's find out what happens for 2021 resident visa.
Great, thank you for the answer, Malkit Singh. Karan Sidhu has asked, so do you think, and I suppose this is a more of an opinionated answer that, it's a bit of a judgment. Do you think INZ would be able to cope with the numbers in phase two? And if the timeframes they have set to process the applications are realistic?
Karan Sidhuji, if they only use human power, it's doubtful. But if they are going to use the technologies they are investing in, and because of my background in technology, I know that Immigration New Zealand and MBIE in general, they are investing heavily in platforms like PEGA. So PEGA has a case management platform and robotic process automation facilities. So Immigration New Zealand is building a new framework for automated decision making, where a lot of these back-end admin work will be done automatically using AI models and robotic process automation. There will be still human involvement to make sure that these decisions are correct and they follow the quality control process. But because of this technical insight, I think it is possible for them to cope up with phase two. And in fact, they can cope up with much larger number of applications if they get this technical system right.
Great. Ramatrit Kaur asks, if someone is on a salary earning $27, which is the current rate, I believe, for one of the three criteria, if but they've had to work some extra hours from contracted hours, and the next week they had to do less hours to maintain those contracted hours. How will INZ calculate the pay rate? Is it with the maximum hours, or how else will their eligibility be checked?
Rahmat Reet Kaur, Sat Sri Akal. So, an important point which you haven't asked as a question, but based on your question, I'm going to give you additional advice here that you need to make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements. Immigration New Zealand says that someone who met the threshold on 29th of September, they needed to be in a full-time employment. So if someone doesn't have fixed hours, or if you're saying that the hours were less than 30 hours, if someone is on a casual contract, then there are risks. You may not meet the eligibility requirement. So it has to be full-time employment as on 29th of September. So if someone was only working for a casual contract, and even though in that particular week they worked for 30 hours at $27 or more, but in general they could be working just for 10 hours, 15 hours, that's a problem. So you need to make sure that you review your employment agreement. What is the nature of that agreement, and do you meet the eligibility requirement? It's not just earning $27 per hour, it's also being in a full-time employment, which is in alignment with what they are saying. They're saying we want to help employers. Benefit given to migrants is a side effect. Their main objective was to help employers retain the full-time staff they had.
Cool. So we're at about an hour, so we're really good at our timing here. I'll give maybe 30 seconds to a minute for anyone that has any final questions, and then we'll look to wrap up. Ramatadith has just followed up that her agreement was for 40 hours.
Okay, if your employment agreement was for 40 hours, it's fine. Technically, employer cannot reduce hours from the contractual hours. If you are saying that they made you work over in 1 week and next week they gave you time off or compensated, that may be okay. But you still need to make sure that you address this upfront in your application. Make sure that you explain this to Immigration New Zealand so that they don't think that something is going on. So because of high number of people who will try to beat the system, you need to make sure that you are front loading this additional information and maybe getting a letter from your employer explaining the circumstances. Maybe COVID had a role to play. Especially if it was in Auckland, maybe there were circumstances which meant that you were not getting paid the amount which you would normally get paid. That is still okay. As long as you were in a full-time employment, you can prove it through documentation, through previous pay slips, bank statements, IRD summary of earning. These are the type of documents Immigration New Zealand will ask for. It may be still okay.
Great. Kashmani asks, if you qualify for all three criteria, then how will it work, and does it make any difference? I imagine that's quite a fortunate position to be in. But yes. Yeah, what would happen in that case?
In that case, I recommend that you choose the settled criteria, because that would mean the least number of amount of documents and least amount of work on Immigration New Zealand's part. So that's how we are processing all of our clients. If somebody meets all three, we go by settled. And if somebody does not meet settled, then we go by salary. If they meet the salary, if they meet salary and scarce list, then we go by salary. So we try to look at, okay, how can we reduce work for visa officer? Because that would mean a faster decision. So that's what you should go for.
And again, I'm sorry if I pronounced the name incorrectly, to Kusharil Jahan, what about who are eligible under settled criteria? I hope that that's the same kind of question. Hopefully that's answered it. If not, feel free to expand on your question. Ramadrit has also just added a follow-up that she's on salary, so she gets paid for those contracted 40 hours only, if that would have an impact.
Yeah. So Rahmat Reetji, this is important to understand. Many New Zealand employers, they don't understand employment law. Now, I'm not an employment law specialist, but I can definitely comment the way Immigration New Zealand requires employers to meet their obligations under employment law. You are highlighting a factor which you haven't said it in words, but I think you are implying that sometimes you work more hours, sometimes you work less hours, they pay you the same amount of salary. Immigration New Zealand actually wants that if your contractual hours are for 40 hours per week, you must get paid for 40 hours per week, even if you work less than 40 hours per week. That's a contractual obligation they have entered into, and they have to meet that obligation. If an employer is found in breach of not meeting employment law or any other law, a visa may still be declined. So, for example, when you apply for a work visa or a residence visa in other policies, normally if the employer is not compliant, Immigration New Zealand will refuse to grant a visa. Now, because this is a new policy, in principle, same rules could apply, unless Immigration New Zealand then says that, well, it wasn't the fault of migrant, and for this policy we'll make an exception. They haven't said it so far, so I can't give that advice. My advice would be to make sure that you educate your employer around their contractual obligations, and make sure that they are using a payroll software to capture your timesheet. Employer may be asked to provide for time and wages record to make sure that they are paying you time and a half if you are working on a public holiday, and they are maintaining records of your annual leave, and they are making all the required payments on time as per your contractual obligations.
Well, a nice way to follow into the next question. Ramanjit, apologies, I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. Is it? You may have a better idea, Malakith. But he asks that someone working on fixed term full time, but working 30 hours because of lockdown in September, are they still eligible?
Yes, Ramanjit Kalaji, answer is yes. And 30 hours is all you need. Even if you were always working 30 hours, that's the definition of full-time employment by Immigration New Zealand. So immigration only requires 30 hours. And to build on to this question itself, if someone is working even less than 30 hours, but they had a contract for full time, and the reason for working less than 30 hours was also COVID related, and they had some kind of agreement with the employer, it may still be okay. So it's then based on the circumstances and what evidence we can provide, it is still possible that you will still meet the requirements.
Wonderful. I think we'll look to wrap up there. I have, for those who are watching on either the YSPN page or on the Carmento Facebook page or our other channels, I've added a comment that's got some links there. So if you're looking to develop your professional skills, we have a few offerings that include events where I mean, at the moment of lockdown, there aren't any physical events, but typically we tend to host networking and event-based nights where they will connect you with successful professionals, often of our own sort of backgrounds, you know, that are of migrant backgrounds or of other ethnic backgrounds, that can help sort of inspire and guide you on their own journeys and what they can give you to help develop yourself. We also do free CV and LinkedIn profile checks. So for anyone who either is looking to put one together or has one and is looking to bring it up to speed, especially right now, if you're looking for new opportunities with lockdown and have some free time to upgrade it, then you can reach out to us there. All that information's on our website at yspn.org.au, and you can also connect with us on our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. To connect with Carmento, you can find a lot of information out on their own Facebook page and on their website at carmento.com. And Malakith, if you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would like to say that YSPN is a great organization. I am personally impressed with the type of work they're doing. And many of migrants were probably they are hearing about this organization for the first time. So we want to change that, and we would like to assist this organization in reaching out to more and more migrants. So we look forward to more collaboration in the future, and hopefully we can plan other events where many of these migrants, they are in need of services which you are offering. So I think it's a great combination. There is a need and there is a desire to help. So we look forward to building that bridge.
Great, thank you for the kind words. That's very true. So, out of our 4 pillars that we look to support, one of those 4 is migrants. So, this is something new that we've decided to focus on for the past about year or two. Of course, COVID, once it started, made a part of that progress a bit challenging for all. But now we're really looking to increase the ability to support migrants. And that's definitely why we wanted to engage with this new residence visa. It's a very um, big achievement for sure. But we of course have discussed that there are certain groups that have missed out on it. But that not to lose hope. There are other ways that you can still develop yourself, and there's ways that we can support you in doing so. Almost everything we do is free of charge. The only thing that has any cost ever associated with it is the mentoring program, and usually that's also kept very minimal, just to help cover the costs involved. But things like the CV checks, things like that, are almost always free or as accessible as possible to help give you the most support that we can give you. The residence visa and the migrant story is still very much going to be happening next year. This is not the only thing that we could ever involve ourselves with. So I look forward to collaborating with Carmento, and also being able to help support migrants in other ways in the following year and beyond. Thank you so much for your time, Okit. I really do appreciate it. And to anyone who wants to get in touch again, I really encourage you to either reach out to us at YSPN for anything professional development related, or you can reach out to Carmento for anything that might be immigration advisory related. Beyond that, I hope you all, from wherever you are watching, are safe and well. If you're in Auckland, you'll look forward to the news. And the changes and the border reopening and the holidays. So we wish you all very well, and have a happy holiday season. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.